What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue with our schedule previews and projected records for 2021. The Vanderbilt Commodores are up next. The All-SEC schedule for Vanderbilt proved to be too tough as they did not win a single game. You look back to their schedule, and they didn't have to play Alabama, and their game against Georgia got canceled, so it could have been worse. But yeah, they were competitive in a couple of games, Kentucky, Texas A&M, but really Vanderbilt proved that they were probably the worst team in the SEC last season. This is a schedule for 2021. Before we go game by game, let's look at who they play outside of the SEC East, because we know they're going to play every team in the SEC East. In the non-conference, they'll play ETSU, Colorado State, Stanford, and UConn. Colorado State being on the road. They're going to have to go out west for that matchup. And how about Stanford? That's an interesting matchup there. Battle of the brains in that matchup. And it's one that, it would have been more interesting if Derek Mason was still at Vanderbilt when you look at that connection. But regardless, that should be a pretty fun game to watch there. It depends on how good Stanford is. If Stanford's really it takes a step forward this year, this is probably going to be a blowout, but they haven't been great the last few years, so that could be a competitive game. And then you've got Mississippi State and Ole Miss in the non-division. You really couldn't ask for much more than that. You don't have to play Alabama, you don't have to play Texas A&M, don't have to play LSU. Ole Miss might be the fourth best team in the West this year, but still, they play them every year anyway, so Mississippi State's a pretty good draw out of the West. So a schedule sets up pretty well for the Commodores. They begin with ETSU on September the 4th at home. Then they'll play Colorado State on the road September 11th. Stanford on September 18th at home. Again, a game that maybe Vandy will have a shot in. So it's tough to say right now. Georgia on September 25th, obviously going to be a tough one. And then UConn, they're on October 2nd at home. UConn has not been very good the last few years, so that's, I think, definitely a winnable game. Probably a game that Vandy should win, actually. If they were able to somehow beat Stanford, this team could actually start off 4-1. I mean, it could be a good start for Vandy, but then you look at the rest of the schedule there in the SEC, and the wins just seem like they're going to be tough to come by. Florida there on October the 9th on the road, got to play in the swamp. Going to be a tough one. South Carolina, now they're going to be down, I think. It's perhaps a game that Vandy could sneak in there and maybe get a win. But playing on the road at South Carolina, going to be a tough matchup. Mississippi State at home October the 23rd. Get them at home. Maybe that's a game you could maybe still a win in. Missouri there on there should be October 30th, a typo there. On October the 30th, last game that they'll play in the month of October. And it's strange because their bye week is the first weekend of November. Like, you've only got 3 games after the bye week, so a really late bye week for Vanderbilt, which is interesting. And then they close out. Down the stretch here, they'll play Kentucky at home. They'll play Ole Miss on the road, and then Tennessee on the road. So again, the schedule is going to be tough for them just because it's Vanderbilt, and they're probably going to be, I would say they're going to be underdogs in 9 of their 12 games probably. So again, a tough schedule for Vandy, but it could be much worse. I think really the schedule sets up in a way where if they make some improvements and Vandy's a good bit better than they were last year, there are wins on the schedule that could possibly happen. And who knows, Vandy could maybe even make it to a bowl game. They don't have any real tough stretches. I mean, Georgia, you have Florida. Those are probably going to be the 2 toughest games. Missouri and Kentucky will be pretty tough. They're back-to-back, but they're at home. How about that stretch right there from Mississippi State to Kentucky? All 3 of those games at home. So again, there are some opportunities here for Vanderbilt in 2021. A schedule that sets up in a way that they could potentially have some success, but of course they're going to have to do it on the field. They're going to have to play better to have a chance to win a lot of these games. Vanderbilt went winless last year, but again, it was an all-SEC schedule, so it wasn't as bad as you might think. Well, let's see what this record could be in 2021 as we project it. And again, this is not an official prediction. This is simply a projection based off of the schedule and just kind of grouping games together, opponents together, and putting some rough percentages on there. 0-9 last year. But with some non-conference games back on the schedule, you would think Vandy will not be winless in 2021. This is the scale that we use to do this projection. If the game stays in white, it'll be 41 to 59%. Those are 50-50 games that could go either way. Less than 10% in red, 10 to 25 in orange, 26 to 40 in yellow, 60 to 74 in purple, 75 to 90% in blue. More than 90%, it'll be in green. And we've got one of those for Vandy, ETSU, FCS opponent. Now, it's not at close to 99%, but I think it's in the low 90s. They should win this game. They will be much more talented, and it would be a pretty big upset if they were to lose. And then we go to the blue. We got UConn, and I think they go in that 75 to 90% category. This team has been awful the last few years. Really no reason to expect Vandy to lose that matchup. How about in the purple? Do we have any of those? I think you got one. You got Colorado State. That's a game where I think Vandy will be favored by about a touchdown, but it will be on the road against a decent group of 5 teams, so they won't be big favorites, and it's definitely a game that they could possibly lose. 3 games where I think they're going to be favored. Now we flip to the other side and look at the games where they will be underdogs. Starting in the red, we've got one of those, Georgia. They've got no chance. They will not beat Georgia. I'll go ahead and tell you right now, no chance. That's the only game, though, that I would say they have no chance in. The orange are going to be games where they have a very small chance to win. They'll be double-digit underdogs, and I think you've got 4 of those games. Florida on the road, Missouri and Kentucky, and then Ole Miss because it's on the road. I just don't see Vandy having much of a chance in any of these games. If they were to win one of them, it would be a pretty big upset. So I think you can put those 4 games in the purple. And then we move it up to the yellow. That's the rest of the schedule. Stanford, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Tennessee. I think Vandy will be clear underdogs in these games, but not huge underdogs. They'll be about a touchdown underdog, I think, in all 4 games. Tennessee, South Carolina might be 50-50 games if they were at home, but playing on the road, I think that is enough to bump those down into the yellow. So you can see with Vandy here, we've used every color except for the white. We didn't have any 50-50 games. And when you do this projection, the way we do it, we count the green and the blue as wins. The purple, 60%, the yellow, 40%. We average out those games. Again, we're just averaging out the purple and the yellow. The orange, those games are counted as losses. And when you average everything out for Vanderbilt, their projected record comes out to 4-8. So the projection would say that, yes, they're going to beat ETSU. They're going to beat UConn. And then out of Colorado State, Stanford, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Tennessee. Out of those 5 games, the projection would have them winning 2 of them. They would go 2-3 of those games. Who would they beat? I don't know. But again, when you just average it out, the averages would say that Vandy could win a couple of those games. So 4-8, the projection for Vanderbilt. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Think they'll be better or worse? Give me your thoughts down in the comments below.